Officer, why was I stopped?
Stolen vehicle report. License and registration. Now.
What's the report number?
I'm not debating with you. Hand over your documents.
I have a right to know why I'm being detained.
You're making this harder than it needs to be.
I'm asking a simple legal question.
The red and blue lights started flashing in my rearview mirror as I drove down the interstate on a bright, cloudless September afternoon. I was just heading home from a judicial conference in a neighboring state, driving my black Lexus, bought and paid for with over a decade's worth of honest work as a district court judge. My speedometer was steady at 68 in a 70 zone. Not a thing about my driving that could have justified a stop. But I didn't need a ticket to know why those lights were suddenly behind me. I'm a 44-year-old black woman, and I've spent my whole career threading my way through the American legal system. Some things you just sense. What happened in those next 35 minutes, all of it captured on the police dash cam and my own phone, would go on to spark a legal fight that nobody could have predicted. One that would ripple way beyond the roadside. I pulled over, careful, my hands high on the steering wheel, already thinking about everything I'd need to document. Too many times, routine stops for people like me turn bad. I turned on my phone camera and set it on the dash, making sure it could see both me and the driver's window. My heart was pounding, but my voice stayed steady. I knew what was at stake. The officer took his time, walked a slow circle around my car, peering through the glass, radioing in that he'd stopped a suspicious vehicle. That was the word he used, suspicious. Not speeding, not unsafe lane change, just suspicious. My Lexus was clean, tags current, and I was driving in broad daylight with no law broken. But for Sheriff Brad Hutchinson, 8 years running the department, 2 decades in law enforcement, and a well-known reputation in the black community, suspicions seemed to come standard if you weren't white and you were behind the wheel of something nice. Folks around here had a nickname for him, the Lexus Sheriff. He finally came up to my window and told me, no greeting, no explanation, just demanded my license and registration. He made me roll the window all the way down, not just a few inches to pass the documents, but completely open, so I'd be exposed, right there on the shoulder. I asked, calm as I could, why I'd been stopped. That's my right, to know what I'm being accused of. He shot back that I'd been driving erratically. But I hadn't swerved, hadn't even sped up or slowed down outside the limit. Later, the dash cam would show I never drifted once. But erratic is the kind of word cops use when they don't have a real reason for a stop. It's slippery, hard to disprove unless you've got video. Lucky for me, I did. I asked if he could show me any evidence of this supposed erratic driving. He got annoyed fast, told me to hand over my license and registration right now, acting like my question was a crime. He was trying to intimidate me, counting on me to just do what I was told, maybe get flustered, say something wrong. But I've spent years listening to every excuse, every dodge, every threat in the courtroom. I wasn't about to lose my head. I let him see every movement I made. I'm reaching for my registration, which is in the glove compartment, I said for the camera. My hands are visible. I'm moving slowly. If there's one thing I know, it's that I wasn't going to give him any chance to claim I'd reached for something or made a sudden move. When I handed over my documents, he snatched them up and just stared at them, flipping them over and over like he was hoping to spot a forgery or some problem. But my license was clean and current. The car was registered in my name. Nothing to see. Instead of letting me go, he started asking questions that had nothing to do with traffic safety. Where was I coming from? Where was I going? Why was I in this county? How long would I be here? He was fishing, trying to find some excuse for pulling me over. I answered, polite but short, telling him only what the law actually required. I'd been at a judicial conference in Columbus, headed home to Cincinnati. Just passing through. He still wasn't satisfied. He started pressing about the Lexus. How could I afford it? Was it mine? Did I borrow it? How long had I owned it? That's the part that always stings. The assumption that someone who looks like me must be up to something if they have anything nice. But I kept my voice level. I told him I'd owned the car 3 years, paid for in full, mine outright. I didn't mention I was a judge. I was curious. How far would he go? How deep would this profiling run before he realized his mistake? He told me he had to run a warrant check. That usually takes 5 minutes, but he sat in his cruiser over 20. I could see him on the dash cam making radio calls, running every possible check he could think of, hoping something would pop up. During that time, more cruisers rolled up. 3 more. Now there were 4 squad cars behind me, all for one middle-aged woman in a black Lexus with not a single traffic violation. I sat there, still recording, narrating out loud for the camera every few minutes. It was so over the top. 4 cars, all for me? That's not safety. That's intimidation. When he finally came back, he brought another deputy, stood him behind me off to the side like backup. He announced he hadn't found any warrants, then said he needed to search my car for contraband. Didn't specify what kind of contraband. Didn't give a real reason, just leaned on reasonable suspicion. But he had none. Under the law, you need more than a feeling or a hunch to search someone's vehicle. I told him, loud and clear for the cameras, that I did not consent to any search, that there was no probable cause, and that any search would violate my Fourth Amendment rights. He tried that old, tired line. If you have nothing to hide, why not let us look? I've heard prosecutors say that to juries. I've always told them in court, the Constitution gives you the right to refuse a search, and exercising that right does not make you guilty. I explained all this to him, even cited case law. He should have realized right then that I knew the law, maybe even suspected my profession. But he just doubled down, threatened to call a canine unit, said I'd have to wait in the heat until the dog arrived. That's a classic move, using a dog to drag out the stop. But you can't just do that without independent, reasonable suspicion. I told him that using a canine to prolong the stop would violate Rodriguez versus United States. Still, he pushed forward, ordered me out of the car, claimed I was being detained because of my nervous behavior and evasive answers. But my footage and his own dash cam showed I was calm and direct the whole time. He made me stand with my hands on my own car while he patted me down, rough and unnecessary, just to try and make me feel powerless. I didn't react. I made sure to state for the camera that I did not consent, that this was retaliation for standing on my rights. They searched my car anyway, even went through the conference documents in the back seat, looking for anything they could use. 15 minutes of them rifling through my things. They found nothing, not a thing. When he came back, he started asking more personal questions about my finances and life. That's when I decided it was enough. I looked him in the eye and said, "Sheriff Hutchinson, I am Judge Tamara Hayes of Hamilton County District Court in Ohio. I have been serving on the bench for 12 years, and what you just did, all of it on video, constitutes an illegal stop, search, and detention and racial profiling. The change was immediate. His face drained of color. He stammered, said if I'd told him up front, all this could have been avoided. I let that sit a moment, then told him, "Sheriff, you shouldn't need to know someone is a judge to treat them with respect. Every person deserves that." I made it clear that he'd stopped me with no probable cause, searched my car without consent, detained me over half an hour, and all because he saw a black woman in a nice car and jumped to the worst conclusion. The younger deputy even muttered that he'd tried to tell Hutchinson they should let me go. Caught right there on camera. Proof this wasn't just a misunderstanding, but a pattern. I told Hutchinson I'd be filing formal complaints with every authority available, and if any footage vanished, I'd pursue criminal charges for destruction of evidence. He finally let me leave, more than an hour after the stop began, but not before I got every badge number, every name, every detail written down. I went straight home and backed up the video to 3 different places. You can never be too careful. 1 copy for me, 1 in the cloud, 1 on a hard drive. Then I started calling judges I knew, civil rights attorneys. Within hours, I had 3 lawyers ready to take my case. This wasn't just about me. It was about what happens when someone who knows the law gets profiled and decides to fight back. Before any lawsuit, I filed every complaint I could. The Sheriff's Department, the Ohio Peace Officer Training Commission, the Attorney General, the U.S. Department of Justice. I made sure there was a paper trail everywhere. If they tried to sweep this under the rug, they wouldn't get far. Once the media got hold of it, the story exploded. A black woman, a respected judge, illegally stopped and searched by a sheriff known for racial profiling. All of it on video, from multiple angles. Local news led with it. Civil rights groups like the NAACP and ACLU issued statements demanding an investigation, pointing out that if this could happen to a judge, what about everyone else? Stories poured in from others who'd been stopped by Hutchinson, especially black and Hispanic folks driving nice cars or through certain neighborhoods. The pattern was undeniable: profiled, searched, and then let go. No tickets, nothing ever found. 6 weeks later, we filed a federal lawsuit. It was almost 90 pages long, laying out not just what happened to me, but a whole pattern of discrimination in the Sheriff's Department. We got records through public filings that showed black and Hispanic drivers were stopped at way higher rates than their share of the population. We sued Hutchinson personally and the whole department, charging civil rights violations, false arrest, illegal search, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and failure to supervise. Through legal discovery, we found that in his 8 years as sheriff, Hutchinson had 23 complaints against him for racial profiling or illegal searches. None of them resulted in discipline. Most were swept aside or settled quietly. The county had known. They'd chosen to protect him, not the people he was supposed to serve. Under questioning, Hutchinson crumbled. When asked why he'd radioed my car as suspicious, all he could say was that it was an expensive car in a mostly white area, and a black woman driving it stood out. That admission, under oath, was impossible to take back. Even the young deputy backed me up, saying he'd been uncomfortable with the stop, but was afraid to speak out. The first settlement offer from the county was laughably low. No admission of guilt, just a confidential payout. We rejected it flat out. What I wanted was public acknowledgement, real compensation, and above all, change. 18 months after the stop, the final settlement hit headlines everywhere. $1.8 million. But more importantly, the county had to admit in public that what happened was illegal, that it was racial profiling, and that they'd failed to stop a pattern of discrimination. Hutchinson was impeached, lost his badge for good, faced state charges, and wound up a convicted felon. His deputies faced suspensions, retraining, and investigations. The sheriff's department had to implement real reforms. Outside experts for anti-bias and constitutional rights training, independent civilian panels to review stops, body and dash cams required for every officer, strict rules for camera use, and a new community relations director dedicated to repairing trust. I put much of my settlement into a fund to help others in Ohio facing racial profiling, paying for lawyers, evidence, advocacy, and pushing for new laws. In the years since, over 150 people have been able to sue and win, forcing even more departments to reform. My case is taught in law schools. The footage is used in police training as an example of what not to do. I'm still a judge, and now, when cases about traffic stops come before me, I bring both legal knowledge and lived experience. Some say I'm too tough on officers. I say I just hold them to the Constitution. It changed my life. For a long time, seeing police lights in my mirror made me sweat. I needed therapy, leaned on activism, and found purpose in the pain. I've been open about that. The fear doesn't just go away. It isn't about the money. It's about the harm, about never feeling quite safe. Hutchinson never apologized. In his few interviews, he painted himself as a victim, claimed he was scapegoated for stopping a judge. It was a reminder that real change can't just come from waiting on officers to see the light. You need systems, accountability, hard consequences. 10 years out, I see the legacy in the changes that followed, the trainings, the reforms, the stories of others who found the courage to fight. It's in the people who stopped me to say thanks, to share their own stories, to say that seeing a judge stand up helped them stand up too. Maybe the biggest proof that one person can make a difference isn't the headlines or the payout. It's the policies changed, the lives made safer, the knowledge that refusing to be intimidated can spark real justice. That stop was 35 minutes, but what it set in motion will keep echoing long after. For me, that's the real legacy, change for everyone who comes next.